Good morning. So I want you to consider something. When a string is pulled tight, maximum tension, what happens when you pluck it?
It vibrates, it's reactive,
Right, but when the string has slack, when there's space, what happens?
nothing. It'll swing back and forth. It doesn't really react, right?
Right. So here's the real question. Which string are you when someone challenges your patience, your virtues, your values, your integrity? Most people through life, like they're like the first string, pulled so tight that the slightest pluck sends them vibrating. One rude comment, one disrespectful, colleague, one boundary crossed, and they're just off. But the most centered, powerful people I know, they've mastered something that the Stoics called apatheia. But that's not apathy, but emotional freedom, the ability to stay calm, grounded, and true to yourself, even when people are actively trying to pull you off center. I'm Maria Savio. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and a life coach, and I help people transform their lives fast by transforming ancient wisdom with modern psychology. And here's here's what I've learned. The people who test your patience aren't your problem. Your reaction to them, that's the problem.
And that is such a life lesson, right? When we find ourselves being reactive to what other people do, it's like we have to look inward and we have to realize that it's about us. So today we're going to share exactly how to handle yourself with grace, dignity, and power when people challenge you, because they will challenge you. And using Stoic philosophy, mindfulness practices, and personal development, we're going to share some strategies that actually work, because you can't control other people. You can't make them respect you. You can't force them to be kind and fair and reasonable, but you can control how you show up, and that's where your real power lives. I'm Lourdes Slaper. I'm a life coach, a mindfulness teacher, and I'm committed to helping people unlock their potential and cultivate confidence and calm.
So, before we talk about how to stay centered when people test you, we need to understand why they trigger us in the first place. In personal development, we talk about triggers as unhealed wounds meeting external pressure. And when someone challenges your patience, they're not creating your anger. They're revealing it. It was already there. Mindfulness teaches us that our reactions aren't about what's happening. They're about the story we're telling ourselves about what's happening.
Right. If someone's pushing your buttons, then it's up to you to recognize that you've got a bunch of buttons that they can
Mhm.
come along and push. And the Stoics knew this. Epictetus said it perfectly. I can speak. People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. So, not by the things, but by the views they take of them. So, when your coworker disrespects you in a meeting, what's actually happening? They said words, that's the objective reality, but your brain adds a story. Maybe something along the lines of, they're trying to undermine me, they don't respect me, I need to defend myself, or I'll look weak, or just being offended and thinking and feeling this is unacceptable. And then suddenly you're not responding to what happened, you're responding to your interpretation of what happened.
Right. Think about the last time someone really got under your skin. What did they actually do? Now, what story did you tell yourself about what they did? And if you see the difference there, that gap between what happened and the meaning that you gave what happened, because that's where your power lives.
Yeah, in my work, I've found that people get triggered in three main areas: patience, values, and identity. In patience, it's usually behavioral triggers. Someone's rude, inconsiderate, slow, demanding, interrupting, boundary crossing. In values, it's moral triggers, right? Someone does something you consider wrong, unfair, unjust, or dishonest. And then there are the identity triggers, the ego driven, right? Someone challenges your competence, your integrity, your worth, your reputation, your authority.
Yeah, I mean, big triggers those three are. But here's what's fascinating: the same behaviors that send one person into rage barely even registers for another person. Why does that happen? And the thing is that because it's not about the behavior of the other person, it's about what that behavior actually means to you, what wound it actually touches, what fear it activates in you, and what belief it threatens. And that's actually good news, because if your triggers are about you, then you have the power to change them. So how do you do that?
So the Stoics developed five core practices for staying centered when people test you. And modern psychology, neuroscience, and personal development research validate every single one. Marcus Aurelius practiced imagining himself from a cosmic perspective, zooming out until his problems looked teeny tiny. And this is the first practice. This is what psychologists call cognitive distancing, creating space between you and your emotional reaction. Mindfulness teaches you to observe your thoughts and emotions as if you're watching clouds passing by in the sky. So you're not identifying with them, you're just noticing, observing them pass by.
Yeah, so when someone triggers you, you mentally zoom out. First you see yourself and the other person in the room, then you see the building you're in and the city, and then you see the city from space, and then you see the planet spinning in infinite space. And from that perspective, does that interaction actually matter? Will it matter in 5 years? Will it matter on your deathbed?
This is such a useful practice. I can think of probably five times I could have done better with it over the last couple of days. But I had a client, hospital administrator, who was like constantly being triggered by a surgeon who was very belittling of her in front of the staff. And she'd go home fuming and replaying the interaction on a loop, planning her comebacks for the next time she had to interact with this surgeon. And we talked about her taking the view from above, this practice, right? And she really latched on to this idea. And the next time he was condescending, she mentally zoomed out. She saw herself, him, the hospital, the city, the planet, and she thought, you know, in the vastness of our existence, this man's opinion of me is nothing. It's irrelevant. His words lost their power. She could respond professionally without the emotional charge. And ironically, he started treating her with more respect because she stopped being so reactive.
Yeah, that's such a great technique. And research shows that perspective taking activates the prefrontal cortex, that rational part of our brain, and then it deactivates the amygdala, the emotional part of the brain. So you literally calm your nervous system when you do that practice. So the practice is, again, when triggered, close your eyes or go inside your mind and zoom out, see the situation from space, then ask, does this really matter? And then the next practice, the Stoics called it negative visualization, premeditado malorum, but we really call it more like foresight. The Stoics practiced expecting people, or the foresight is to expect that people will be difficult, that they'll be unreasonable, that they will even be grateful, maybe even selfish. And this isn't to be cynical, but really to be prepared. And I know you might be thinking, oh, Maria, that sounds like you're being pessimistic, but that's not the practice. It's it's being realistic, because it's about understanding. Well, let me just say, Marcus Aurelius, he wrote this every morning. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, they'll be ungrateful, they'll be arrogant, they'll be dishonest, jealous, and surly. But he doesn't just stop there. He continues and he says, they're like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoers has a nature related to my own. And so none of them can hurt me. Again, this is the Roman emperor, right? He wasn't saying people are terrible. He was saying, expect humans to be human, then you won't be shocked when they are.
Yeah, that's essential, right? Because when you expect people to be perfect, you're constantly disappointed. When you expect people to be flawed, you're prepared for the reality, because we're all flawed. We are all flawed. There is no perfection. So, this is about meeting reality as it is, not as you wish it were. And that's the foundation of emotional freedom, because before a difficult interaction, you know, anticipate that they might be defensive. They might misunderstand you. They might prioritize their needs over yours, and they might be reactive. And when they are any of those things or other things, you're not blindsided. You're ready. You can respond with grace instead of reaction. And so the next practice is the dichotomy of control. This is one of my most favorite things to share. Epictetus taught that some things are within your control and some things are not. And it sounds really simple, but it's surprising how easy it is to get caught up in trying to control the things that really are not yours to control. So, um, you know, one foundational thing is that peace comes from focusing only on what's yours. And so we'll give you some examples. What you can control: your thoughts, your responses, your words, your boundaries, your values, your character. And what you can't control: other people's behavior, other people's opinions, other people's level of respect or consideration for you, other people's choices, um, whether or not they understand you, and whether or not they change. These are completely and wholly out of your control, and recognizing that is really a path to freedom. And most of our suffering comes from trying to control what we can't control. And this is what psychologists call radical acceptance, accepting reality as it is, even when we don't like it. Mindfulness teaches us to observe without resistance. And when you resist reality, you suffer. When you accept it, you're free to respond skillfully.
Yeah, so the next time when someone challenges you, ask, Can I control their behavior? No. Can I control their opinion of me? No. Can I control how I respond? And there's your yes, there's your power. Put 100% of your energy on what you can control and release everything else. So I had a client that he had a business partner who was constantly undermining him in the board meetings, and he spent months, maybe even years, trying to change the partner, reason with him, confront him, appeal to his better nature, but nothing worked. And I asked him, can you control whether he undermines you? And he said no. But then I said, can you control how you respond when he does? And that's where his yes was. That's where he was able to reframe and change how he saw things and how he took back his power. He stopped trying to change his partner. Instead, he focused on his own responses, staying calm, stating facts, addressing the board directly. He tried to document everything. And his board noticed, and they saw, who was actually the most professional person and who was actually being petty. Eventually, they ended up voting out that partner. But the bottom line is that he prevailed when he realized what he could control. He prevailed by not controlling the partner, but by controlling himself. So here's your practice. List 3 things about a difficult person, maybe even list 5 things about a difficult person, and take that and cross it out. Then make a list of the things that you can control and put your focus and your energy on the things that you can actually control.
Yeah. And the next Stoic principle is sympathy, universal connection. The Stoics believed all humans are connected, part of one universal nature. And when someone wrongs you, they're acting from ignorance, not evil. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when people injure you, ask yourself what good or harm they thought would come from it. If you understand that, you might feel sympathy rather than outrage. And this is what emotional intelligence research calls perspective taking, understanding the other person's internal world. Mindfulness teaches compassion, seeing that everyone is struggling, everyone is suffering, everyone is doing the best they can with their level of awareness, with whatever resources they currently have in the moment, right? And so when someone challenges you, ask, what pain are they in that makes them act this way? What fear is driving their behavior? What are the what are they protecting? What wound are they operating from? Because hurt people hurt people. Scared people attack, insecure people belittle. And understanding this means that it doesn't mean that you accept the bad behavior. It means seeing the humanity behind it so you can respond with wisdom instead of being reactive. And when someone triggers you, ask yourself, what pain might they be in? And let compassion soften your reaction.
So important. The next Stoic principle, the final Stoic principle, has to do with internal validation. The Stoics believe that acting with virtue, integrity, patience, kindness, courage is its own reward. You don't need external validation. In fact, Seneca wrote, if you wish to be loved, love. He didn't write, if you wish to be loved, make people love you. You act with integrity because that's who you are, not because of how people actually respond. And this is what psychologists call internal locus of evaluation. Your sense of worth comes from within, not from the external approval or the external likes on social media or anything like that. Mindfulness teaches you to act from your values, not from your ego. You do the right thing because it aligns with who you want to be, regardless of recognition. And when people challenge your values or integrity, ask yourself, what do I want to be in this moment? What would my highest self do? What response would I be proud of tomorrow? Then do that. Not because they deserve it, because you deserve to be the person that you want to be. When you act from virtue, you win, regardless of the outcome, because you get to be the person that you respect. So your practice is before responding, just pause and ask yourself, what would my highest self do? And then just do that.
So we're going to leave you with a little daily practice, something to try on a daily basis. In the morning, spend 2 minutes grounding yourself. Really, have this attentional and intentional control of breathing and centering yourself, allowing yourself to be present. And then spend 2 minutes in negative visualization. Imagine one person who might test you today and mentally rehearse responding with grace. And then intention setting, spend another minute choosing one quality to embody today, whether it's patience, compassion, courage, dignity, calm. And then throughout the day, when you're triggered, when someone pushes your buttons, pause, observe, choose, and then respond.
And then in the evening, this is just 5 minutes, review your day. When was I tested today? How did I respond? What could I have done differently? And then practice gratitude. Who challenged you today? And then take the moment to ask yourself, what did I learn today? What did they teach me about myself from this interaction? And then just let it go, release it. Take 5 deep breaths, let go. Tomorrow's a new day. And that just takes 10 minutes, total of 5 in the morning and then 5 at night, plus conscious responses throughout the day. And if you do this for 30 days, you'll start to really notice that you're less reactive, you recover faster when you're triggered, you feel really more in control of yourself, and you respond with calm and with wisdom instead of, you know, being volatile or too emotional. And you actually grow from difficult people instead of being drained by them. That's what grace under fire is. It's not avoiding difficult people, but transforming through your interactions with them.
Yeah. So, let's take a look at what grace under fire really looks like. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire where people constantly challenged his authority, plotted against him, betrayed him. And this is what he wrote: the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Epictetus was enslaved and abused by his master, and he taught, if someone speaks badly of you, consider whether what they say is true. If it is, correct yourself. If it isn't, laugh and move on. And Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz, where guards tried to, strip him of his humanity. And this is what he wrote: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom.
Three people that definitely had so many more challenges than the average person has now. But even so, like the executive who manages to stay calm when their boss publicly berates them and then earns the respect of everyone in the room, like the parent who takes that pause and responds to their child, their teenager's rage with compassion instead of anger, and then is able to rebuild that relationship, or like an entrepreneur who faces brutal criticism with grace and then turns his critics into his supporters. They don't avoid difficult people. They don't pretend it didn't hurt. They don't respond perfectly every time, but they practice. They pause. They choose. They respond from their values, not their wounds. And you have the same capacity. You have that same choice. And one of my favorite quotes from Marcus Aurelius is, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.
Yes, because people will test you. That's guaranteed. They'll challenge your patience, your values, your integrity. And the question is, who will you be when they do? Will you be reactive or will you be free? The choice really is yours. The Stoics chose freedom, modern psychology validates their choice, and personal development gives you the tools.
So remember to do the daily practice, and you'll transform your relationship with difficult people. You'll transform yourself. You'll stay calm when others are reactive. You'll respond with wisdom when others attack, and you'll maintain your integrity when others lose theirs. You'll be free, even when you're surrounded by chaos. And Epictetus wrote, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. So remember, people are going to test you. That's life. But grace under fire, that's your choice. So choose consciously, choose daily, choose now.
And choose our book, A Path to Resilience Small Steps to an Unshakable You, as a guide. It blends mindfulness, the concepts of positive psychology, and Stoicism. It's a year long companion that imparts daily wisdom based on the values of wisdom, courage, justice, and self discipline. It's now available at Barnes& and Noble, Amazon, and other online vendors.
So thanks for being here today. We're walking this path with you. We're alongside you. Take care of your heart, take care of your mind, and take care of yourself. Support our work by liking, following, subscribing, and sharing this with someone who needs a reminder that they're stronger than they think they are. And we'll see you next time.